Everybody loves a cold start. All right, let's get out of here. Hardly any bikes there. There's a picture of me as a baby. It's hard to believe that Buells are vintage bikes these days. I know Janus looks like a vintage bike, but I don't think it is a vintage bike. If you're good at counting, you can see 3 on each side. For my buddy two-wheel vintage, here's a XS650. Believe it or not, back in the day, 1975, these were sport bikes. I don't know much about Nimbuses, but that's one right there. 3-wheel deals in an odd position. Man, this is a weird bike to ride. Knees are up in your armpits. Yeah, I'm taking this one right back. It's giving me freaking hip cramps. It's just absolutely freaking horrible. This is happening right behind me. Today we are off to a vintage motorcycle show in Scottsdale, Arizona. Had a tough decision between the Bonneville and the Scout. Doesn't really matter, neither one of them are vintage. I was watching YouTube the other day and someone said that everybody loves a cold start. Are cold starts even a thing anymore? All right, let's get out of here. Well, we made it. I was a little concerned that it was going to end up like the last time I went to a bike show and there was hardly any bikes there, but we have made it and there's a ton of stuff to go see. And amazingly enough, there is no blaring music. I had to circle the place a few times because there wasn't really much bike parking, so I found it right across from all the test bike areas. So we'll wander through and see what there's for vintage bikes. This bike up is a ladies FJ 1100, 2000s, early 2000s Kawasaki ZRX. I wanted one of these. It's between this and a 1200 Bandit. I ended up with a 1200 Bandit. Nice bikes. The panhead, really not 100% sure on all my vintage bikes, but it'd be nice if some of these had signs on them. There's a Harley Sprint. There's a picture of me as a baby with my dad on a Sprint just about like this. He had the Enduro version with a high pipe on it.
Well, you can't on this, but yeah, I can see that.
Go ahead. 68 Electric Glide. It's hard to believe that Buells are vintage bikes these days, but I guess time passes, right? I know Janice looks like a vintage bike, but I don't think it is a vintage bike. Henderson. Very cool bikes and a little on the rear side. Beautiful old Indian. $37.
We don't do that anymore very much.
20s Harley. We've got a cigar lounge over there. Nice little Triumph Bobber. It's a 60. Seems that they weren't terribly picky about what was vintage.
Oh yeah.
Kawasaki 500 triple, two-stroker. '76 Honda CB 750S. Not one of the more desirable ones, but it's a pretty nice example. They don't seem to be segmented off into different eras or anything like that. They're just kind of randomly put out here. Here's a bike that I wanted when I was about 12 years old, a CBX, Honda CBX. This is a 79 6-cylinder. If you're good at counting, you can see 3 on each side. They sound just wild. They sound like a Ferrari. Just an awesome bike. I think these things go for like $10,000, $12,000 still. For my buddy Two-Wheel Vintage, here's a XS650. That's 78. It's a little bit later than he likes. Yamaha DT400. Super Hawk. These things seem to be pretty popular in the vintage market. Seems to be like a lot of these are getting fixed up. Like to see that. Here's more of a classic CB750, 1971. I don't think that's Sandcast. I think the Sandcast ended 69, was it? Someone may know out there. There's a pretty cool bike, an FT500 Ascot. When I was just got my driver's license, this was a pretty cool bike, affordable, and it had a little bit of power to it. We are headed into the music area, so I may have to cut some of this and put some music over it, but we'll do the best we can. Another Kawasaki Mach 3 500. KZ 900. My dad had one of these, believe it or not, back in the day, 1975, these were a sport bike. RD350, 2-stroke. Just a wild little bike. I remember taking quite a few rides on the back seat of one of these. Honda 450 Hawk. Track bike for a lot of folks. These are a neat little bike and they're pretty sought after. I think they still have some value to them. We also have a 500 Interceptor. Really great bike in its day. GS 1000S. These GS 1000s and 1100s are really still popular. Really nice example there, really nice, good shape. Moto Guzzi Eldorado. These were police bikes, and this actually was a police bike. You can tell by the cases and the light gear that's on the front. You see, it's got the radio box on the back. It still has a police dash on it. This is really nice.
Yeah, Mitchell, he's
Ariel Square 4. Square 4 cylinder. Beautiful bike. I think that's a Fit 1950. BSA. 2-cylinder 650. So you can see what year it is. 1954, 1964. They're coming back. Chinese companies making them again. Another old V7 Moto Guzzi. Sign says it's a 68. Here's a civilianized Moto Guzzi Eldorado.
last time when I went there, shitty because it rained out. So it was no fun. But it was like
1973 Norton Commando, 62 Norton Manx. Looks like someone bobbed a Triumph TR6 maybe. We have a 46 Nimbus. I don't know much about Nimbuses, but that's one right there. 1970 VSA, a 65 Lightning. That's what the sign says. I'm not up on my BSAs, but it's a real nice bike. It's a Ducati from their early days. .200 motocross. Well, that's what I see here for vintage bikes. Pretty quick run through. Just a nice fair amount of bikes and good turnout. So I'm going to walk over and see if maybe I can jump on something and do a test ride on something. Hey. Let's see what everybody brought with them. Not quite as many Harleys as I would have thought. There's a Scout. Good mix of bikes that came here. A few Ducatis. There's just about everything. There's adventure bikes and naked bikes and sport bikes. A few three-wheel deals. Even a few vintage bikes mixed in the parking lot out here too. T7, a V-Strom. Well, let me get rid of my camera setup here and wander over and maybe try out some bikes. Well, let's run over to Indy and see what we can get into trouble with over there.
Is there anything else you want to ride today, Adrian?
No, probably just this.
Okay. Right now we're letting that screen load up, Adrian. This menu button right there brings up this screen here. This screen allows you to change the ride mode. The ride mode is the throttle response. So I always encourage you to leave it standard, but please change to sport on the fly. Close the throttle, hit that menu button, tap sport, then roll back on the throttle. Okay?
Gotcha.
Follow the Triumph signs around and come back here.
Sounds good.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Well, here we go. Sport Chief. Man, the pegs are super wide and in an odd position. Man, this is a weird bike to ride. Yeah, I'm not liking this. Man. Position you're in, your knees are up in your armpits. Your back's leaned forward and your arms are way out, so it's a stylistic thing. This is definitely not the bike I wanted to ride today. Yeah, I'm taking this one right back. It's giving me freaking hip cramps. And it's difficult to get your foot on the peg because the pegs are so wide in such a bizarre position. And they're right where you want to put your foot down. It's just absolutely freaking horrible. If you're like me, 6'1", 260 pounds, this would not be a comfortable motorcycle for you. And you can tell by the length of ride. And I am a fan of Indian. This wasn't the particular model I was looking for. But this would not be the one I would change my mind to for sure. Yeah, that's a bizarre set of pegs. Not a fan. So we decided to bolt on the demo rides. You can ask my wife, I have very little patience and my patience ran out. I don't like waiting in lines. However, I have to say that the Triumph experience, the interface and everything was much better than the Indian experience. Both had a self-guided route, which I think that's great. You don't have to follow somebody. You can ride the bike the way you want to ride it. I have to say that Triumph has been full of people over there and empty of bikes. I mean, the interest in Triumph seems to be huge. Indian has had a fair amount, but nothing like Triumph. The scramble I tried out was awesome, as I said. Hang on for 1 second. This is happening right behind me. Anywho, I tried out the Chief. The ergonomics on it were impossible for me. I'm 6'1", 260, and I felt like my knees were up in my armpits. The bike itself, the motor, the transmission all seemed to be good, but I couldn't even go to the next parking lot with it in the configuration that it was in. I couldn't get my feet down or up because it kept hitting the foot pegs. But seems like a nice bike, but it didn't have the bike that I was looking for, which was the Springfield, so it's kind of a moot point. We are going to divest ourselves from the bike show here, and had a good time. There was a bunch of really nice vintage bikes, which I'm hoping you saw on the video, and it was fun to take at least a couple of bikes out on a demo ride, which I've never done a demo ride before. So I'm gonna hop on the bike here and head on out. A little concerned when I pulled in. There was not a whole lot of bikes. That was pretty cool, and the music was kept to kind of one little area, which was nice. Should be able to have some decent video for you guys. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you watching. Adios.